Hello, everybody. My name is Dan Zellman. Welcome to our session, Best Practices for Getting Back into Public Safety. So pleased that so many of you have joined us and excited to see so many people on the call. Right now, we're in the several hundred participants and we had over 600 people register. First, it was just open to Cleveland, but midway through today, Jewish Federation of North America added it to their daily email, and so we have people on from all over the United States and possibly some from overseas. I'm currently a vice chair at Federation, and I'm also on the Jewish Federation of North America board, and we're really pleased that you're joining us tonight. I want to thank the Jewish Federation of Cleveland for providing these wonderful opportunities to so many people. I want to recognize board chair David Heller and President Erica Rudin-Laria for the amazing work that they've led during this time of uncharted waters. Neither of them realized this was going to happen when they signed up for the jobs, and they've really done an amazing job of steering our Jewish community through these times. One of the core strengths of our Cleveland Jewish community is its commitment to caring and providing for others. During the past few weeks, your Jewish community, Federation, agencies, schools, and other community partners have demonstrated strength, caring, and a resolve to work together to face the coronavirus and its impact on our community. Thanks to the community's collaborative efforts and your generous support of our community in the 2020 Campaign for Jewish Needs, we've been able to respond to many of the immediate needs in our Cleveland community. Food is getting to the hungry, care is reaching the elderly, and support is being provided to those with financial challenges. But as you would expect, the needs continue to increase as this is an unprecedented situation. If you are interested in supporting our Jewish community in its fight against the COVID-19 crisis, please consider making a donation to the Coronavirus Emergency Relief Fund, and you can do that by visiting our website at www.jewishcleveland.org. We also want you and your friends to know that we're here for you. If you are struggling or know someone who is struggling during this challenging time, please contact Access Jewish Cleveland at 216-292-info. We have devoted volunteers lined up to help members of the Cleveland Jewish community with various tasks. Our Jewish Volunteer Network is offering a variety of virtual opportunities for children, teens, and adults being led by volunteers with expertise. Activities include homework tutors, technical help to teach how to use Zoom, Instacart, and other online features, resume assistance, and more. If you're interested in either learning about the services or volunteering your time, please contact Susan Hyman at SHYMAN@jcfcleve.org, and you can sign up to participate in some of these opportunities. The Jewish Federation has been hosting a series of webinars to ensure our community gets the information they need to keep themselves, their family, and the community safe and healthy. We want you to be able to ask questions directly to recognized thought leaders on the front lines. And speaking of a recognized thought leader, tonight we have the privilege of speaking with Dr. Michael Roizen. Dr. Roizen is Chief Wellness Officer Emeritus at the Cleveland Clinic. He served as the clinic's first Chief Wellness Officer and its founding chair of the Wellness Institute. Dr. Roizen initiated and developed the real age concept to motivate behavior change. He is an anesthesiologist, an internist, and an award-winning author. He authored 4 New York Times #1 bestsellers, 9 overall bestsellers, including Real Age, Are You As Young As You Can Be? He also served on the FDA Advisory Committee for 16 years and chaired an FDA committee. He is a recipient of an Emmy, an L, and the Paul Rogers Best Medical Communicator Award from the National Library of Medicine. Dr. Roizen is devoted to helping people live younger. We are so grateful to have Dr. Roizen join us today as we figure out how to return safely back into public life. Dr. Roizen will first share some information about the coronavirus and its impact, and then following his remarks, he'll take your questions. Please use the Q&A box located at the bottom of the Zoom screen to send the questions in, and we will then accumulate the questions and ask whatever we can until we run out of time. So thank you so much. Dr. Roizen, please take it away.
Thank you. This is going to be the share, I hope. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to lower your risk in the age of this virus. And I hope to follow, and for some reason my screen is not working, but there, hopefully it will. Yeah, the importance of lifestyle to avoiding chronic disease. And then we'll talk about the factors that have influenced death from this virus, and the concept of there's a difference in you protecting you versus you protecting others, and we'll go through those differences and what you can do to both protect yourself and to protect others. And then we'll throw it open to the question and answer period that Dan will be moderating. My conflicts, you've heard a little bit about them. I did write these books, and I do earn royalties on them, so I have a conflict with them. And these are the latest two books, if you will. I should say that I am not representing the Cleveland Clinic here tonight. You can see me at the clinic, but these are my own views, not those of the Cleveland Clinic. So I'm going to talk first about the importance of lifestyle and avoiding chronic disease. And what we know is if you change behaviors to get to what we call 6+2 normals, and I'll go through those briefly because they pertain to this virus as well, you have only 10 to 20% of the risk of all others for cardiovascular disease and cancer. That's similar for both men and women, but in the United States, only 2.7% of us get to even 4 of those 5 behaviors. And when we see why is Medicare so expensive and why do Medicare patients have so much problems, that is over the age of 65, because it's 0.6%. So we started at the Cleveland Clinic a campaign of how do we get more people to get to these behaviors. And if you will, that's exactly what was studied in the nurses and health professionals study. And you see that if you can do that in those studies, just as the ones we've reviewed, you extend your healthy life expectancy. So the life expectancy, as we say, free of diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and cancer at age 50 is 23 if you don't get to these. But if you do, it's 7 years longer. Same for men. Life expectancy is 23, but those who adopt the healthy behaviors, it's 31. So you get to control how long and well you live. The clinic went on this both to help people and to save money, to see what reduction. We've saved about $840 million compared to the national average and compared to our trend line. That is how much we haven't spent. And our employees haven't spent about $250 million in premiums. And that's by getting to 6+2 normals. We were at 6% when we started this in 2008. We're now at around 43%. So it's possible for people who aren't having those normal blood pressure, normal fasting blood sugar, normal height for weight, or weight for height, normal LDL cholesterol, no cotinine, no tobacco end products in the urine, and doing a stress management program to get to those normals. If you look at the actual causes of death in the United States, you see that tobacco still leads it. Poor diet is second, alcohol. But I want to focus on I wanted to focus on microbial agents. That includes viruses and the flu. We've been around 90,000 a year. If you say we're in lockdown because of this virus, we should really be in lockdown because of tobacco, and we should really ban smoking if we're going to do something to decrease death. And if you will, the things that are modifiable by lifestyle are all the common killers: colon cancer, stroke, heart disease, diabetes. All over 70% can be prevented by healthy lifestyle. Why is this so dramatic? It's because of how fast. This is the deaths per week. And you notice that the deaths in the week of April 13th to 19th overtook the deaths in that week from heart disease, cancer, car crashes, etc. And even were much greater than the flu in our worst year in recent memory, 2017 to 18. The deaths per week were greater in this week, and this wasn't our highest week. What do people die of? Well, if you look at it, who dies? It is the people who are over the age of 70 represent the largest fraction of people dying. And I'm going to look at that in a little different way. If you look at the people under 70, they have comorbidities, the highest being being grossly overweight, that's morbid obesity. High blood pressure was the next. Diabetes, heart disease, lung disease, immune suppression, and chronic kidney disease are also related, but by far it is high blood pressure that isn't controlled and morbid obesity, that is severe obesity. So how do you lower it? Well, we've gone over that, but the factors influencing death, and you look at it here, this is the data in Ohio. It is, if you were in a long-term care facility, and for some reason it is 30% of all deaths, here it is, were people in long-term care facilities. Another 30% are those over the age of 80, and 16%. So if you exclude people over the age of 70 or in long-term care facilities, that's 76%. That means if you are in one of those situations, I'm over 70, that means I'm in that high-risk group. So it is age. We don't know whether it is physiologic age, meaning what the actual age of your body is or your calendar age yet, but we will. But it is those other comorbidities affect people under the age of 70. Now, what can you do to protect yourself and to protect others? And I couldn't resist putting this in. This is, I miss the days when we were terrified of romaine lettuce, but you protecting you is different than you protecting others. So you protecting you, it is 12 feet of physical distancing. That is, if someone else coughs, to protect yourself, you need to really be about 12 feet away, and, if you will, doing as much in isolation as you can. It is washing, especially before touching your face and eating. This is bringing it up. When we filmed at McDonald's, that is the Dr. Oz show, we did 17 hours of filming at the fast food restaurants in Cleveland. Virtually no one of the grandparents, before they fed their grandkids, washed their hands, and many of them took receipts, shoved it in their dirty pockets or purses, and then started peeling back the food to feed their kids. So it is washing and being really meticulous. That's because we now know that this virus not only gets you through the respiratory tract, but through your GI tract. And in fact, almost everyone, something over 80% of people, have GI symptoms now. That means you should heat or reheat food to 140 degrees Fahrenheit for at least 15 minutes. So if you take it out from a takeout place, you should really reheat it before you eat it, because the virus lives in that food and can cause you disease. It's just like hepatitis A. If the person working in the place where they prepare the food happens to put it onto the food, it will live on that food until that food is essentially no longer able to propagate it, which is a long, long time. So you have to heat or reheat it. Protecting you is protective personal equipment, gloves, and hat. Why a hat? Because a lot of people touch their hair in, if you will, accidentally before they touch their mouth. They comb their hair. When we looked at women doing this, again at McDonald's, even the teenagers, they were stroking their hair, I think about 60 times an hour on average. So a hat protects your hair so that you won't touch your hair as often, one, and two, it won't live in your hair until you touch it. N95 masks are what protects you. So it is that higher degree of mask is what protects you if you're breathing. We'll get into what protects others in masks in a few seconds. So physical distancing for others, it is 6 feet. So you protecting the others in normal breathing, as long as you're not coughing or sneezing, 6 feet away rather than 12 feet for protecting yourself. Cloth masks help protect others from the particles, but if it's all aeration, it is an N95 mask. Importantly, if you get symptoms, whether it is coughing or fever or sneezing or difficulty breathing and diarrhea, it is quarantine yourself. If you're shedding the virus, you should quarantine and then test before you go back into public. The message, it is physical distancing, and N95 masks work for both you and others. If you're over 70 or have one of those comorbidities, you should really consider making sure you physically distance for 12 feet at most times and use an N95 mask until we get a vaccine or an effective treatment. I can't resist some of these school signs. This is, when I saw this, my teacher misses me. I doubt it. But in any case, I couldn't resist copying the school signs. So you protecting you and others, I'm going to leave this on for a few seconds. And you want to get to normal. That is, if you get to the normals and don't have a chronic disease, which is by having a normal blood pressure, a normal LDL cholesterol, a normal fasting blood sugar, a normal weight for height, or at least not a morbidly obese one, having cotinine levels that are 0, meaning no secondhand smoke, and doing a stress management program. If you do those things, you really protect yourself against all chronic diseases and a lot of immune diseases, not just this one. And remember, the difference is you protecting others, a cloth mask and distancing of 6 feet is really helpful. I think that's all I wanted to share. And now I'm going to ask Dan if we should take questions, and I'll eliminate my sharing on the slides.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Roizen. We already do have several questions flowing in. There's a few that center around people going out to supermarkets. So one, should people be doing it? Should we be doing that? And if the answer is yes, how can we protect ourselves during the experience? And then you talked about heating food. Well, obviously there's certain foods, fresh produce that you're buying that you're never heating. So what precautions would you take in that? And then you can add to that, in the protecting the slides, should we be going out wearing masks, wearing gloves, and sort of give us the process to go through, because people have been using Instacart, other delivery services, and wondering should they do it on their own.
Yeah, if you use a service, that is, if you use a service, again, you want to get that food and wash it really well, and then wash yourself before you eat it, especially fresh produce. And all the other things, you want to make sure you do heat at 140 degrees for that 15 minutes before you eat it. If you, and I go to the store with trepidation, so I do it as infrequently as possible. I wear a mask. If I had N95 masks, if I could buy them, and now you can buy them, they're available. They're a little, I think they're about $5 now. So if you can buy one and wear that, that's extra protection. Wear a hat and wear gloves if you want or not. Stay 6 feet away from people. When you get home and wash stuff, that is, wash it really well. So whether you pick it up yourself or have Instacart or someone else deliver it, make sure you wash it. Who should be very careful with this? It is people over the age of 70 and those with comorbidities that aren't under control. That is hypertension that isn't under control, obesity, and you can go on Google and look at a body mass index. If your body mass index is over 40, those are the people who are at risk. It is people with diabetes. It is people with active cancer or cancer treatments or immune system dysfunction, chronic kidney disease requiring dialysis, and respiratory disease. Now, it turns out that 50% of people over the age of 70 have one of those, and about 30% of people from 60 to 70 have one of those. So those are the people really at risk, and those under the age of 60 with severe obesity are the people who, when you look at it, those are the people who are most at risk. Now, we go ahead, Dan. I've spent long enough on that question. I'm sorry for taking too long.
That's okay. Take your time. So we have another one that's very similar. Some people have asked about resuming doctor and dentist appointments. Now, obviously some, and you talked about this, you can do telehealth, but there are certain, obviously you can't really do a telehealth dental exam. And then you also, certain doctor appointments that you go to, you can't, doctor has to examine you or do something. So when would you feel comfortable resuming those, and then talk about the precautions that are taken to do that?
So those are now being resumed, and as some of my patients know who had significant problems in pain or another condition, we started those a couple weeks ago, but now we're opening it up with a little broadness. So there's no patients are within 10 feet of any other patient. The physicians and patients are both wearing masks, and we're being as careful as we can, and we're screening for fevers. Those people with fevers are getting separate treatments, if you will. But we're wearing a lot of protective equipment, and so the chiropractic or the acupuncture or those things where you do a GYN exam or specifically exams where you have to lay on or procedures, we're doing a lot of protective equipment, so we as physicians are not giving it to patients, and the rooms are really clean. I've never seen the rooms as clean as they are. So the rooms are really clean, and we're doing as much as we can to protect you from getting something from us and us from getting something from you. But in fact, we now think we can broaden that. Remember, I said the people who get it, if you're under 60, you're at very low risk of getting a severe problem from this. And maybe, and we don't know this for sure, so check with your doctor, but the people under 60 who are getting problems are getting this, if you will, increased inflammation, and then clotting from, that is, increased clots from the inflammation. And it may be that you'll want to start taking an aspirin twice a day with a half a glass of warm water. I drink it with coffee. Coffee is a healthy thing if you're a fast metabolizer. So drinking it with coffee, so the aspirin lands in the warm water and dissolves in the warm water. But check with your doctor on that. It may be that that's a protective. We're now looking at all the medications that people who suffer problems and who didn't suffer problems but were in the hospital with COVID-19 had, and seeing what drugs minimize it and what drugs augment the adverse effects. But for right now, I feel very comfortable in seeing patients because of all the precautions we're taking and you're taking.
Okay, thank you. We, along the same lines, we have a lot of questions since you talked about the masks. You mentioned N95, and we've all heard this, are better than non-N95, whether they're cloth or whether they're another type of manufactured mask. First of all, you said that they are available now. Maybe you can suggest how to do that, because we've had several people ask about how to obtain them. And in terms of wearing them, when do you think it's necessary? You talked about the grocery store, you talked about going to the doctor. Is it just a blanket statement that whenever you're out in public, indoors someplace, or what would your recommendation be there?
So remember, the regular cloth mask is protecting other people, does a minimal amount of protecting you. N95 is what protects you. So if you're in a high-risk group, if you're over the age of 70, or you're got a serious comorbidity and are under the age of 70, especially if you're between 60 and 70 with that, that's when, whenever you have contact with other people, or in spaces where they were likely to be. So you go in an elevator that had a bunch of other people in it, that's when I would try and do it. How do you get it? Well, the way I've gotten it is I saw that you were available, some were available on the internet. So I would try and get one of those. You can wash it, you can keep it clean on the outside, but remember, it is a little tougher to breathe through. So you don't want to exercise with an NDA, you don't want to go to a health club or someplace else where you're running through that, because it is harder to breathe through. They look like paper on the inside, but they aren't. They're actually a plastic layer in most of these that have very fine meshing so that it stops the actual virus from going through. Or they're rubberized in very small, if you will, holes and multiple layers. So it is harder to breathe with an N95 mask, but it is protective of you. And so if you're over the age of 70 or have those risk factors, I would try and get one and use it when you're ever in contact or going to be in contact with someone else.
Okay, thank you. We have several questions around the whole issue of antibodies testing and then what it's going to mean, accuracy of the tests. Once somebody gets tested and it's shown they have them, does it mean they can go anywhere and not be a carrier, be reinfected? So what do we know about that at this point? And what is this?
What we know is that the antibodies, let me just go and talk a little bit about antibodies in general. When a virus or when a bacteria or when something invades you that has a protein structure or an amino acid structure, or in the case of virus, it is an RNA virus, meaning it has nucleic acid in it. If your body sends out a series of defenses, you initially have cilia in your nose and throat that beat it out, that act like brooms. Those are destroyed, by the way, if you smoke or vape. You have your skin, which has a layer of healthy bacteria on it and a layer of fat on it that helps protect you. Your intestine has the same type of structure to protect it. Then if it gets through those initial layers, you have an innate and an acquired immune system. The innate immune system is warriors that go out and try and beat the hell out of the, if you'll pardon that expression, out of the bacteria or gobble up the virus. But they also send out warning signals. One of them is called the toll receptor. It's not called toll because it collects a toll. It's called toll because toll means great in German, I'm told. And that sends out a great signal. So you signify to your immune system, come and help. And the immune system produces initially IgA and IgM antibodies that call forth the rest of your immune system to try and coat it and stop it from attacking. And then you produce later on IgG antibodies, which neutralize and allow your killer cells to kill the virus or bacteria. What happens is the virus tries to get inside one of your cells, like a lung cell, a pneumocyte type 2, takes over its reproductive machinery and produce more viruses that can go and spread to the rest of the body. So what you want is that initial IgG signaled by the IgA and IgM to come and help and neutralize it. We think when you have IgG antibodies that you are immune, but in some cases, like this one, it may be you're not immune. That's why some people in Korea, there are over 100 cases of people who got the virus, got better, demonstrated IgG antibodies by tests, and then got sick again. So we don't know whether this is a peculiar virus in that you don't develop immunity when you develop IgG antibodies. The second problem is there are a whole bunch of coronaviruses out. It's not just this coronavirus, but there are 7 common coronaviruses. Some of them cause the common cold or influenza B. Some of your antibodies may cross-react. That is, they may react to the new one, what's called SARS-CoV-2, and may react to the other coronavirus invaders. And so there may be cross-reactivity and we may be mistaken. So where we are now, don't rely on the antibody tests. Maybe soon they will get good enough to rely on. But right now we say the diagnosis is made by the nucleic acid tests, the tests that test antigen. And those nucleic acid tests, if they're positive, means you still have the virus and are still shedding it. One disturbing fact, we've learned that people are shedding it in their poop for an average of 19 days after they've gotten the infection. So you're a little more infective than we'd like, and we're just learning about the GI infectivity and the infectivity of your poop as well as your breath.
Thank you. We have a lot of grandparents age 70 and over in the community, and people are wondering about seeing their families, seeing their grandkids. And then would your answer be different, because you talked about the comorbidities earlier. So if somebody is, say, a very healthy 75-year-old, not obese, none of the other underlying factors that you described, would you be more open to having them interact more with their family and grandkids now? Or would you say stay away from it if you're 70 and over? Or share a little about that, because a lot of people are asking about that.
The basic question is, how risk tolerant are you? So if you say, I don't care if it's a 5% risk of death if I get the disease, that's only 1 in 20, I'm likely to survive it. And the hospital's got plenty of room now if I get sick now, then you might see your grandkids. The problem is we don't quite know enough about the disease and the shedding of it. And clearly, if you've got comorbidities and or are over the age of 80, I wouldn't see them until they get tested that day, pretty soon. So if you're in a assisted living facility or you're over the age of 70, I would say wait 2 or 3 months, or at least a month. We will have rapid testing available and local. Then if your kids get tested that day or right before they see you and are negative, and we're going to have fast tests so you can do it, and hopefully those will be available in the nursing homes, then you can see them. And I wouldn't let anyone in a nursing home, as soon as we get these tests available, including the workers who haven't been tested, who have gone outside. So you want to keep those nursing home and assisted living facilities and long-term care facilities as, if you will, pure of this virus as possible until we get a treatment that's 80 or 90% effective at decreasing the adverse sequelae, or until we get a vaccine that gives us herd immunity so the kids don't get it. But we will both get more antigen testing that is rapid and available, so you know that your kids that are visiting you, the grandkids, are free of it, and we'll learn about the antibodies, and if they're protective, in other words, if your children have the IgG, and we learn that those are successfully protective, then we'll be able to open it up. That's kind of why we went wrong in this whole process. You can look at it at the budgetary process. Dr. Fauci had enough money at NIH, and he, believe it or not, and it hasn't come out big league, but on January 3rd or 4th, I don't know which date, he let out 3 vaccine contracts, which is why we're moving fast on vaccines. CDC's budget and the Office of Emergency Preparedness was skinned to the bone and cut over the last 3 years each year. And so CDC didn't have money to put out the testing contracts to commercial companies. That's why it's taken so long to develop these tests, where we're 6 weeks behind before those contracts started to be let, and it was, I think, 9 weeks before we had budgetary authority to let those contracts. That's why testing has lagged so far behind the vaccine development. The great news, we may get vaccine. We got 70 companies are competing on vaccines. It's like 70 shots on goal. We're likely to get one, the goaltender miss one, and us get a great vaccine, hopefully by next January or February.
Thank you. Talk about people going back to work. So we've got retail is partially open, restaurants, there's going to be a plan in place to get those partially open. A lot of businesses that were not essential are now open. If you're a business owner, what test would you recommend be done before we put people back to work? And then also, if you're an employee, you're working near other employees, nearer than you were at your house. So what tests would you feel comfortable being done, so to put you in a position where you're with other people that you haven't been with throughout this period of?
If you're under 60, which is the vast majority of workers in Ohio, you don't have much risk. No matter, even if you've got a comorbidity, as long as you're not got a BMI, body mass index, greater than 40, and very few Ohioans have that. So if you're under 60, it's pretty safe to go back to work from the standpoint of you a risk to yourself. From the standpoint of me going to a restaurant, I have risk in catching it. So it's a matter of, do I want the risk? And the restaurant has to say, who do we cater to and how do we make our customers feel safe? I'd actually have a separate area for people over the age of 70 or who are very obese, and I would have it served by only people who were tested with the nucleic acid tests recently and were shown to be nucleic acid negative, meaning not have the ability to convert the virus or to give the virus out. So in my mind, people can go back to work. That's pretty safe if they're under 60, maybe even under 70. And only the patrons, only the people who are over 70 or have one of those risk factors are at risk of getting the real problem. Now, what test would I do? Right now, it's got to be nucleic acid tests, and you want to get one as close to when you get do something at risk as possible. But basically, we could open up Ohio from a standpoint of employees and the economy with everyone under the age of 70 pretty darn safely.
A lot of businesses are also taking people's temperatures. Do you think that, I mean, obviously, if somebody has a higher than normal, they're going to send the person home. But do you think that's a foolproof way of testing for people carrying?
Well, it's, again, if they're worried about infecting their employees and one employee infecting each other, the nucleic acid test is the best. And the next is the nucleic acid test recently and then fever. But remember, you can be asymptomatic for at least 5 days before you get any symptoms, maybe forever. And then you can be spreading it in your poop, if you will, for probably 21 days after you're asymptomatic again. So this is a really weird virus in that we normally don't have that. So from the standpoint of a business opening, you may have a risk to other employees, but if you've only got employees under the age of 60 or even under the age of 70 who aren't morbidly obese, you got very low risk of them getting a severe problem. If you've got people who have comorbidities or who are over the age of 70, then I would make sure you do the testing, and fever is a great way of protecting them from getting infected from others, meaning you test everyone who comes in and make sure they're asymptomatic. But fever isn't any place near as good as the nucleic acid tests, which we expect to be available in much larger quantities within a month.
But then when you have those people go back to work, assuming they pass whatever tests are available, once they are now in another environment, they also may have elderly parents, grandparents. So that goes back to the earlier caution that you're talking about. Those people need to just isolate themselves until such time as they know that basically it's safe to be amongst others.
If you're over 70, you know, when you look at it, if you're over 70, you should either be working from home or saying, I'm going to take the risk, I know it's a high risk. In fact, you look at it in all of Ohio, we have 11.8 million people. Only 116,000 of the people over 70 are actually working. And of those, about a third can work from home. So you'd say at most, we're really inconveniencing, putting in the isolation spot about 80,000 of us over the age of 70 who have to go to work or who choose to. You know, Governor DeWine is going to choose to go to work, but he's going to wear a mask and he's going to social distance and protect himself that way. So that's what the over 70 should do. And it's not seeing the grandkids, it's not seeing others who could be carrying the virus as much as possible until we get that treatment that's very effective. And Fauci has said with so many, if you will, treatments under randomized controlled trials, there are over 240 now randomized controlled trials with COVID-19 treatment going on. We expect that there will be one or more breakthroughs by the end of July or at the latest the end of August, he said. And he said that with an 80% confidence. And hopefully for the other 80, if that doesn't work, maybe a vaccine by February where we can get it up to rapid production that confers protection for you. But in any case, if I was over 70, it is those people who need to understand it's a risk to them, and they have to either be willing to accept the risk or go into isolation.
Okay, thank you. We have quite a few questions on people needing haircuts or the beauty salon or gymnasiums. So I know everybody's hair is a little bit longer than normal, and gymnasiums, we're not sure, I'm not sure at what stage those are opening, but how comfortable would you feel being in that environment for the short term?
So I really want my barber to be someone who gets a nucleic acid test. And yeah, I'm more than willing to contribute to my barber getting that test the day I come for my haircut. Obviously, even my granddaughter on FaceTime said I needed a haircut badly. So I miss a haircut too. So I don't know whether we all should just learn how to cut our own hair a la Anderson Cooper or what we should do about it. But I'm now wearing a hat most time.
We've had a couple of questions on multi-generational families that live under one roof. So you have maybe grandparents and parents and some kids, and kids are maybe going to a summer camp program if the summer camp program is on, and maybe going out more. Maybe they have low risk, but what do you do to isolate within those kind of households that have people of all ages living there, some who may be in the category that the over 70 higher risk category?
You know, that's the biggest problem we have is how do we protect the over 70 who are in multi-generational families? And I think you've got to do it the best you can with masks and separation as best you can. I don't know any other way of doing it. Masks, hats, maybe this is why the yarmulke got popularized in the olden days. I don't know, but it is, we learned from the ICUs in the state of Washington early on that people, that the virus lives in your hair. So you want to cover your hair and take a hat off as you go in your home. And that's probably true with the kids, is they want to wash as well as they can before they come and see grandma or grandpa and wear a hat and take gloves off, etc. I don't know any other way of doing it. In the multi-generational homes are the toughest, and we don't have easy answers for that.
Thank you. We had a few people ask about everybody's getting packages from FedEx, UPS, Amazon Prime, plus they get mail every day. And what do you do to safely handle those? At the beginning, I think everybody was, washing them off or sticking them in the garage for a couple days to let any virus that might be attached, have it die. What have you learned about that, and what would you suggest doing with all those deliveries that are definitely increased during this period?
Yeah, the easiest way is to quarantine all your packages and mail for 2 to 3 days. I don't do that. So what do? I put on gloves, I open it, I get out the inside, the letter, the bill, whatever it is, and then if you will, before I do anything else, I've got the inside separate from the outside. And you say, well, someone could have had to put the darn letter inside or the bill inside. Hopefully, it's been inside for long enough that it took 2 or 3 days to get to me. So it's had the virus dead on it, if it had virus on it. And then before I touch the inside, I then take the gloves off. So you learn what surgical technique is, which is the same process, if you will, of being as careful about what is contaminated and what isn't, and take gloves off. If you can't do that, just quarantine the packages for 2 or 3 days. Food, I wash off as well as possible, and reheat or heat everything for 140 degrees for that 15 minutes.
Okay, as I was getting ready to ask you the next question, I realized that you answered about going to the barbershops and salons, but not about the gymnasiums. So a couple of people have said, what are your thoughts on that?
I would, the gym, the problem with the gym is the mask is fairly difficult to do cardio at a gym. Weights you can do at a gym with a mask on and with gloves on, and then make sure you shower and change before you go into a space where you're likely to come in contact with someone over the age of 70. So remember, the risk to you if you're under 70 and don't have comorbidities is very, very low. So you can go to a gym. You can go. And if you get the virus, it's like a bad flu, but in most cases, it's not life-threatening to you. If you have a comorbidity, then I'd be much more careful and I'd do exercise outside. The great news is we think, and with 7 of the 8 coronaviruses, 7 of the other 8 common coronaviruses, and it looks like with this one that it goes south for the summer. It doesn't totally leave here, but it leaves here to the vast majority of cases, so we will be lucky. Now, we'll learn that over the next 2 weeks from Georgia, Florida, and Texas. They're kind of the experimental states, and now I hear Alabama too. And if it really bounces up, if the illness bounces up 2 weeks from now in those states, then we've got to rethink it going south for summer. But if it goes south for summer, you can pretty well exercise outside if you're of any age, as long as you have distance.
Okay, thank you. Switching gears here, we've had quite a few questions also about schools. So we have a lot of amateur homeschooling parents in our community now, and a lot of college kids that were home, and plus all the college kids that graduating seniors that are looking forward to going in the fall. What do you see happening in that area right now, and what should people expect, or is it too early to know?
From my standpoint, the safest place is with young kids, right? It is if they're alone by themselves and no teachers over the age of 70 or with comorbidities, that's a pretty darn safe environment. Even though they're in close contact with others, they're not at high risk of dying from this disease. Yeah, there is a risk. It's about the same risk as of the flu right now, we think, and maybe 1/3 or 1/2 that for the people under the age of 60. We don't know why it's so safe in those groups, but it seems to be much less attracted to the young than the old. So what's the message is, if I was running a school, I would say, it's fine to be in school with all the young people and I just isolate or socially isolate and have mask and give an N95 mask to any teacher who had a comorbidity or administrator or teacher who is over the age of maybe 60. But it's easy to, it's doable. We're learning a lot more about online teaching, et cetera, but you really can do in-person teaching. And I think that's important, especially for socialization of children. So it's really quite safe for them.
Okay, thanks. Talk about testing. So this could really apply in any different area, but say when testing is more readily available, the barber gets a test this week and he's fine. How often should he be tested to make sure that when you go to the barber shop, or a week later or 10 days later? So what do you see as the testing?
I want the barber tested right before he touches me. So as close to that time as possible. And so I would say we're going to have tests that are relatively inexpensive and that are really available. And so in a barber and a hair salon and a spa and a massage parlor, I really want those to be essentially tested daily. And I think we'll be able to do that if we do this well. Or when the immune tests, I want him to have a badge that says, I got tested and I'm immune to this. And then I wanted, if he's been tested 2 days ago, I want to make sure he's had fever checks and he hasn't, if you will. But really, I want him tested that day. So I'm going to call my barber up and see when he's being tested and come over that day, if you will. And I really do need a haircut.
That could end up being his busiest day of the week. Talk about people have been cooped up, and in this area at least the weather hasn't been that conducive to going outside very often. So people are thinking about, should I go away somewhere this summer? Air travel is one question. Then another one is just going to stay in hotels or a rental property or something. So what are your thoughts on that? Does it just follow that, take these precautions, or what would you say to that whole?
Again, if you're under the age of 70, even if you get the disease and don't have and aren't morbidly obese, even if you get the disease, it's not going to be a big problem for you in the vast, vast, vast majority of people. So maybe 1 in 10,000 it will be a problem for. Now you say, am I willing to take that risk? Most of us are willing to take that risk. Most of us already do. If you look at the people who aren't getting vaccinated, it's a much greater risk than that of all those childhood diseases for the anti-vaxxers. So, for those, and I assume that what will happen at hotels is you will get a badge or on your cell phone, something, and I'm working with a company in Cleveland that's doing this called Vital Chain, that has a color code, a barcode on your phone, and as you go into a hotel, you will show it, and that will show the hotel where you can go. If you've been tested with nucleic acid test, and over a certain period of time, it'll say negative nucleic acid test, and it'll give you a yellow. And if you've been tested or haven't, and it'll give you a red if you're positive. And those will be isolated to certain rooms and certain places at the hotel. It gets special care and special cleanup and special masking. And if you haven't been tested, you'll get a white. When immune tests come out and you know that or when vaccines come out and you know you're protected, you'll end up with a green or blue to show the degree of immunity you have. But the point is that I think we will learn on travel and learn on for people over the age of 70 who where it's really a risk. Those are the people that have to understand the risk. Under the age of 70, if you want to go camping, you want to go, and don't have a morbid obesity and don't have a multi-generational family at home, you're probably pretty good at not having a worry. Now, there are a couple things you can do for your immunity that we should have mentioned: sleep and a multivitamin that is getting your nutrition right. If you look at who gets a higher take rate, when you give the flu out in the fall, the take rate, meaning your immunity, varies between about 10% and 80%. In the studies of people between 50 and 60, it is those people who have 7 to 8 hours of sleep on average per night for the last 7 days and who have taken a multivitamin get the highest success rate in developing immunity from the flu shot. So those are the people. By the way, why are heart attacks and strokes so common as a problem with this disease and with the flu? It's because they cause the flu or this disease causes a very inflammatory state, which causes a breaking off of plaque in your arteries. Almost all of us over the age of 50 have plaque. And if you have plaque in your arteries and you get this highly inflammatory state, it breaks those plaques off. Those go to a distant part. That's what causes the heart attack or stroke or kidney disease or memory loss. And that's what causes the arrhythmias that cause the death. So it is people with plaque in their arteries, those are the ones you've got to be most careful of. And that's why taking good care of yourself, eating healthily, getting your blood pressure under control, getting your LDL cholesterol below 70 are all things that we should do chronically to decrease our risk from all inflammatory diseases, including this one.
Okay, thank you. How about time for one more? It's getting to be 8 o'clock and we told people an hour. And by the way, for people that want to see this, this presentation will be available for viewing on the Jewish Federation website. It's jewishcleveland.org for those who are interested. Dr. Roizen, what about, we've heard and read that maybe this will subside in the summer. It's got a chance to come back again in the fall. Do we know at this point whether weather makes a difference in this? And what is your information telling you about this?
The indication is strongly that weather makes a difference. That's why we think Florida and Texas and, if you will, some of the southern states did not take as big a hit, even in the populated areas like Houston and Dallas and Miami, as did New York. That's a problem for September. If we don't have a treatment that is very effective, it will come back sometime between September 15th and October 15th. So 15 days later, by November 1st, we should see the numbers start to go up again if we don't have a very good treatment and if we aren't well prepared. Our hospitals will be much better prepared, our health system much better prepared for overflow if we need it. We'll know what to do with businesses. We'll have much more knowledge about the immunity by then, and hopefully we'll have one or more treatments or combination treatments that decrease the risk of this for those over 70 by 80 or 90%. But if we don't, we're going to have to figure out how to keep our economy open, because the diseases of despair, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, suicide, those things are starting to increase at rates where they overwhelm the problem caused by the virus itself. So especially in the under 60 population. So as I said, I think what we've learned is that we can generally open up our economy. Most of our workers in Ohio, what do we have? We have about a $400 billion economy. Most of that, more than 95% of that is done with workers under the age of 70 and who don't have morbid obesity. So we can really open up the economy to a large degree without the risk of death that the deaths of despair are causing. And we'll have to isolate and support in some way and protect, especially the multi-generational families. We'll have to do something special for them. But I think by then, our mayors and our governor and our city officials and our county officials will have learned and be informed of what we can do so that we'll be much better prepared. If we're smart, we'll be much better prepared by the fall.
Okay, I'm going to sneak one more on you. We've got a few people that have asked about weddings, bar mitzvahs that are scheduled or have already been postponed, and then we've had a lot of virtual synagogues going on. Hundreds of people joining some of the congregational virtual Zoom broadcasts on Saturday morning and Friday night. Do you have a prediction as far as when those events can actually happen again, and what should people think about those kind of gatherings?
I was asked this on a radio show on January 15th, and I said on May 11th, if this one goes south, we'll be able to do those for all but the people in long-term care facilities by May 12th, May 11th or 12th, the day this coming weekend. I think it's still then. I'm hoping it's still then because my daughter is scheduled to get married on July 5th in a ceremony. So I've paid all the, whatever you call it, the deposits. So I'm counting on it being fine by July 5th. I think it's going to be fine by May 12th. As I said, I think that's still the date that it'll be safe for all of us under the age of 70 and maybe all of us not in long-term care facilities.
Okay, well, thank you for this. This has been really, really fascinating. We've got a lot of great comments already, and I appreciate you taking the time. And to those of you who sent questions in that I didn't get to, there were just too many to answer in this short time period. So I apologize for that. I tried to do a grouping and get the most important, or not the most important, but get the most popular questions. So
Dan, I should say one more thing. Yeah, I want to make sure I'm saying this is my opinions only and not those of the Cleveland Clinic. I'm representing, if you will, myself in this and not official views of the clinic.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you very much. We appreciate what you shared with us, Dr. Roizen. And just a closing announcement: next Thursday at 7, not this week, the following Thursday, Federation is hosting the 116th annual meeting. It will be a virtual meeting, and we'll have remarks by Dr. Erica Brown, director of the Mayberg Center for Jewish Education at George Washington University. She will share thoughts on how to look forward with hope. Thursday will also include the presentation of the 2020 Charles Eisenman Award for exceptional civic contributions to Enid Rosenberg, and remarks will be heard from our board chair, David Heller, and we will have the annual election of the Federation trustees. Please join us again if you can, and thank you very much for joining us this evening. Keep washing your hands and practice physical distancing. Thank you, everybody.